All right, so again, I suck at this live YouTube stuff. Uh, I've tested this thing extensively at my house, my home network, and then invariably I go over to someone's house, and the upload stream just doesn't work. And I've tried bumping down the settings, so I apologize. So the video, and we're going to do the video anyways, and it's going to be uploaded. So what you're seeing is going to be uploaded for free to everybody, not just our Visa members. So again, I apologize. This technology is kicking my butt. I told Robert when I walked in here, I'm just moderately technical savvy. I can test things at my home computer, and if it works good, then I think it's all good, and then it screws up when I get here and doesn't put out. So I'm Captain Mike. This is Captain Robert, and today we're going to talk about striper fishing here in the Chesapeake Bay and potentially, maybe, our coastal waters if they come inside.
Fingers crossed.
So a quick word about Visa. There's a lot going on in the fishing world right now. One of the things that's been keeping us real busy lately is Menhaden. The Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission is putting together Amendment 3, which will dramatically change the way Menhaden is managed along the entire Atlantic coast. And they're going to do a thing called ecological reference points. In the past, they've just managed Menhaden like any other fish. You just try to figure out how many fish you can take out and sustain the population. Well, with the ecological reference points, what they intend to do is, well, okay, this is a forage fish. It's not a sport fish. Nobody eats Menhaden. But other species, other fish, other bird species depend on Menhaden. So they're going to figure out how many other fish out there depend on Menhaden. So what can we then remove from the coastline to sustain the other predators that depend on Menhaden? So that's a radically different departure. And so we were at the first public hearing at the VMRC building on Monday, and everybody gave the regulators an earful. And we supported all the things that will dramatically change Menhaden management, hopefully for the better. Now, this amendment won't be approved until November of 2017. So it's a long road, and they got a lot of work to do. But they're taking public comment now, and we have until January the 4th to write public comment in, written comment. So we're going to be getting with all of our members later about how they can write in and support this amendment. Cobia is still on our forefront issue. We were kind of pleased when South Atlantic Council gave us 6 fish per boat and kind of a full open season. But they continue to give us a very low annual catch limit, a quota, for the states above Florida. What that means to us is the states are then going to try to tell us, okay, you got a small quota, so you're going to have a small season. So do you want either 1 fish per boat, or do you want to just fish for 3 weeks and keep 6 per boat? Because right now the MRIP numbers have came in, what we caught in 2016, and they're just alarmingly high. So the cobia battle is going to continue. And we're going to have to fight for every season we get, every day we have open, and every limit we have. It's going to be a fight all the way to the bitter end. And so it's not looking good for cobia, but we're going to keep in the fight. Lots of other issues going on. We're things we can't talk about too much now because we're working on artificial reef program. We're monitoring, the potential cutting of our license fund money and taking away some of our angler programs. So we're deeply engaged in all of that, and we'll report back to everyone. But for now, we're going to talk about striper fishing, and we're here with Captain Robert from 4 Reel Charters. He runs right now. He's running out of Hampton, right?
Yes, sir. Remember that to Hampton for the Bay season.
And so we're gonna kind of just chit chat about striper fishing. We're gonna try to cover as many of the techniques as we can. And so, Robert, I'll let you get us started.
Okay. As Mike said, I'm Robert Smith. I run the 4 Reel. It's a 61 Weaver out of Hampton, Virginia, in the wintertime for striped bass. In the summertime, we're out of Rudy Inlet, Virginia Beach Fishing Center. We fish inshore and offshore. We have a big, beautiful boat, nice and comfortable for families, and It's got great heat, and for those of you that are football fans, we have DirecTV for Sundays for the rides in and rides out. First thing I guess we'll talk about, Mike, is I guess we'll start with casting, which Mike's been doing a lot of recently. It seems to be a real effective tactic when the stripers are around structure that is near the surface, or that they're feeding on the smaller bait fish that come to the surface, and you see the bird shows and the things that we enjoyed seeing years ago with the bigger fish. We've been experiencing here recently with the smaller schoolie fish. It's great to see the smaller schoolie fish because they're definitely the future of the stock. And hopefully everybody out there is respecting it as they're catching it, and releasing the short ones, and keeping their limit for the day, and going home with some, some nice, good rockfish fillets. But there's several different tactics you can use when they come up top, and one of the best ones for everybody to do is casting. You can cast topwater, you can cast bucktails, you can cast various jigs, rattle traps. There's an endless amount of lures you can throw at them when they're feeding up top, and they're pretty reactive to all of them when they're up top feeding. Best thing that we use on our boat is just spinning combos. One of the spinning combos we use is a medium heavy action rod, 7 foot, and pretty much the same thing. You can go as heavy as this here. This is a Boca 60, which on a charter boat we can't always have a specific rod for everything. We have to use multiple rods for multiple things, and this rod here is very good for us when we're doing our cobia fishing off the coast in the spring and fall, during the summertime. Right now it's set up for casting. I've been doing a lot of fishing around the Monitor Merrimack and the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. This is a gulp shad, kind of like the shads that you see all over the place. It works real well. We cast them to the fish, and they get hit pretty readily. You can vary your retrieve from a slow, steady retrieve to a slow stop, and just kind of a tap tap and then reel, tap tap reel. You kind of figure out what the fish are looking for. Once you figure that out, it's pretty good to go. We spool these reels with 25-pound high vis line of your choice. You can pick your own combo. People even use medium action bass rods, which are a lot of fun. If you are catching smaller fish and you take the size of your rig down to that size of the fish, it makes it that much more enjoyable. We use these rigs because you can also get one of those 15-20 pound fish occasionally when you're casting as well. So this rod doubles for that as well. Again, you can pick your lure of choice: bucktails, swim shads. You can use rapalas, rattle traps, spoons, various bucktails. There's so many different varieties of baits that these rockfish will hit when they're feeding up top like that. So make your tackle box variety, and you don't have to buy the big expensive baits. You can go and catch the the deals at Bass Pro Shops or your local tackle shops. I definitely support all my local tackle shops, and I encourage you to do the same thing. So casting to them is a lot of fun. Mike, you've been doing pretty good here lately, haven't you?
Yeah, and one of the things that we like to do is use a little small jig head.
Yep.
And so what that does is you can put on a different color or tail to it. And so if you find out that they're keying in on white or chartreuse or purple or pink, then you can just swap out without having to retie and put a new lure on. You can just slap on a new tail or something. But when they're under birds, they don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to get the bait in front of their nose and they'll eat it. The problem we've had lately is they've been very small, so you've got to really downsize your bait. Yeah. Even that is probably too big for some of these 14-inch striper we've been catching. But
you can downsize it, like we were saying, with the lightweight bass tackle rods, those small inshore rods I could use for trout. They're perfect for this kind of casting, and We use those rods primarily just because it's a versatile rod for us, and we use the jig heads and change out the grub tails like you said. Some with hair, some without. Doesn't really seem to matter at times.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You like to fish the light line at night along the bridge tunnels?
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, on the charter boat, we don't get to do that very often because you don't find a whole lot of customers that want to come out at night
Don't
and
want
do
to
that
fishing,
fishing.
yeah.
But with friends and family, it's a lot of fun doing that. Coming in the light line, one of the things that I used to do a lot of fun is fly rod fishing. Just taking little clouser flies and just dropping them right back in the light line. You can see the fish, as you know, they come right up in the light line, and they're a lot of fun to catch on light tackle and fly rods. And you can definitely put a smack down on them.
Yeah, I mean, all the bridges, the James River Bridge, the Modern Merrimack, the HRBT, the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, they all hold fish. And the line attracts the bait, and the fish come to the bait at night. And what we like to do is kind of, obviously you're anchored up current, so your stern is facing the bridge and the light line.
Yep.
So we'll cast kind of to the sides, and then the current will then sweep it towards the light line. So
Yeah.
you kind of work it back.
Just kind of let it free fall.
And a lot of times the fish are hanging on the shadow line of the shadow of the bridge and the light itself. It's a very distinct line.
Definitely.
So don't be afraid to put your bait in the total darkness too, because that's sometimes they're hanging in there waiting to come out and ambush something right at that line.
Definitely. I find also that that's pretty dependent upon the tide as far as the level. I found when the tide's running a little better, you'll catch the fish more up in the water column. When you go more to a slack tide, you have to fish a little deeper, a little slower. It's been my experience with fishing the light line at night like that. And,
Have you found the different currents make a difference, outgoing or incoming? Or
yeah, I think it's situational, but not really. You just got to reposition your boat, of course, to the proper side of the bridge. If you got an incoming tide, you have to be on the upside, and outgoing, you have to be on the upside of the outgoing. So
right.
As long as you're in the proper position with your boat, I think you'll find that the fish will be there or not. So,
what's your favorite bridge at night?
I love the high rise area or up around the third, fourth island. Those have just always been my favorite from 3 or 4 years ago when we used to do the eeling up there at night, and you'd see 30, 40 boats lined up on a night. For those have always been my favorite memories. In the recent years, I'd like to see that come back, but for the schoolie fish, the schoolie fish are definitely there now. You're seeing them during the day under the birds, and rockfish are called rockfish for a reason. They're structure oriented. They like to hang around structure, rocks, bridge pilings, wrecks. They're definitely there this time of year. The schoolie fish are coming out of the rivers. They're moving north to south. So the fish from the north, as the cold water starts pushing them out of the rivers, they get on their migratory pattern, and they start schooling up around those structures. And we're very blessed to have the amount of structure that we have in our area with the bridge tunnels and the bridges, and up there in Yorktown, the Route 17 bridge is another great place to go at night. Fished there many nights and done very well.
So since you brought it up, nighttime fishing with eels along the bridges, you want to dive into that topic?
Sure.
And talk about how you do that?
Definitely. One of my personal favorites is eeling for striped bass. The tactics can be used the same at night as during the day. I think during the day we are able to safely traverse different edges of channels and work those edges productively. At night, I think it's safer for everybody to anchor up and upstream of a structure and get those eels over that structure or around that structure where those larger striped bass are hanging out. You can do a lot of different tactics for them. One of the favorite things, we'll talk about night fishing first, anchoring upstream of the bridge tunnel as an example. We use varying weights depending on the tide current, anywhere from no weight to I've used as much as 4 ounces of weight when the tide's really ripping, that can be done on a typical. I use on all my eel rigs, I use a 40-pound fluorocarbon. That's just my choice. I've seen people use as much as 60 and as little as 30, and probably some that use a little less than that. I use a Octopus circle hook. It's just my choice, my preference. You can vary in size based on your eel, or you can stick with one size and you know, kind of use what you're comfortable with. I personally choose a 7/0 more often than any other size, just because I feel it's a good mid-size hook. I've used up to a 10/0 and down to a 4/0, depending on the size of the eel and the leader. So I just tie that, usually a 6-foot leader. I go 1 arm length. That's just, again, my preference. And I tie it to a barrel swivel. And I'll make these rigs up and have several of these rigs on the boat stashed away for when we're doing this. That way when you catch a fish and the line gets a little chafed up, or if you get it around a bridge piling or caught up in some structure somehow and you get chafing on it, all you have to do is take it off and put a new one on. It's always better to be on the safe side and start with a new fresh leader than it is to have chafing on your line and risk losing that fish possibly of a lifetime. You never know when that big striper that you've been waiting for all your life is going to come up and eat your eel. So.
Now, have you found that using fluorocarbon versus mono makes a difference for striper?
I think a lot of it is on the water clarity. I think the clearer the water, the more important it is. But to me personally, I would never take my money, my time, my investment and not use fluorocarbon. That's just my personal opinion. I think if I'm going to go out there and spend my money on fuel, spend my money on eels, which are not cheap, and doing everything, why not spend a little extra money and put the fluorocarbon on there? And if you shop around, you can find your fluorocarbon a little cheaper than the next place. If you buy it in bulk, you can definitely get it a little cheaper. If you don't buy it in bulk, you just got to shop around and find the best spot for you to spend your money. But I personally prefer fluorocarbon on about 90% of my fishing, whether it be rockfish or tuna. So
yeah, there's one school of thought that I find interesting is that like you said, you spend a lot of money going out there, so why skimp on that? But the other side of the coin is if you're out there and you're not getting a bite, and you know that the fish are there, so then you start going through your mind, why am I not getting a bite? So at least you've eliminated that the fish are seeing your leader
right.
with a lighter fluorocarbon leader. You've eliminated that from the equation, so you know that that's not the reason you're not getting a bite. If you're out there with a heavier mono, you're not getting a bite. That's always in the back of your mind somewhere. I wonder if I should downsize my leader and use fluorocarbon. So that's one.
Yeah,
one
and
school
back in the day when we were trolling, it was not uncommon to use the mono leader because the water, is not always clear, but the fish are, heavy feeding. So when you've got a good heavy rockfish presence and you're catching your limit relatively reliably, you can get away with using mono over fluoro if you chose to. I think today, as the fish are a little less available, I think anything you can do to put that advantage in your court, you should do. That's just, again, my opinion, and it seems to work. So I stick with it.
All right, so you're anchored up, you're up current, you're ahead of the light line somewhat.
Right.
So your stern is facing the bridge and the light line.
Sure.
How many lines do you try to put out?
Typically, my boat's relatively larger than others, but I think you should fish what you're comfortable with. Again, situational, depending on how the weather is around you. You want to fish what you and your crew are capable of handling in any given situation, because if you have 8 lines out, and I don't think I've ever fished that many at night, along the bridge tunnel. I think the most I've ever fished is probably 6 at a time. And I do that because I've got a crew of 4 to 6 people on my boat. As far as customers, I've got one extremely capable mate and myself. I like to stay up on the bridge, So I can, if something was to happen, if we break loose on anchor, I can be on the controls soon. But as far as fishing lines, I feel that you should only fish as many as you're comfortable with, and that could be one line for one or two people. It could be two. It could be as many as 6 or 8. Personally, I don't like to fish any more than, say, 2 more lines than the people I have on the boat. So if I have 4, I'll fish 6. I think I'm pretty capable of fishing 6 lines with 4 people. I think that's a good math.
Do you run planers at night too,
I've used planers at night, and I've used planers putting the little glow sticks on them so you can see them a little better. So if you do get into that dark line, you at least know where your baits are. But I'd only fish 2 at night because I want to have control of my spread. I don't want to have it to where if I get a fish, then things get a little chaotic. That we would lose that fish because we've overexerted our spread or put too much out to handle. That one fish you catch could be the only fish of the night. It could be one of many. It could be the fish of your lifetime. So why chance having something against you? So anything you can put in your favor again is the best way to do it. So you shouldn't overdo your spread on anything, whether you're eeling, trolling, or casting.
So what is your how do you like to set your drags when you're eeling at night?
I like to set them relatively light. I use the Octopus circle hooks all the time when I'm eeling. That's just my preference. We use a conventional setup when eeling. This there we got a tangle there. There we go. So steady. Okay. So we use on our boat, we have a medium heavy action conventional rod, and we use the Abbott reels. These are the JX6s. These are great reels. We fish them for a few different things, but they work really well for our eeling. And this is the primary setup when we are eeling on our boat. We have the braid, which we use a 65-pound braid, and we use the beads and the inline egg weight. When I am fishing along the bridge tunnel, sometimes what we'll do, we'll take and make a snap swivel, and we use an inline instead of a egg weight. So, we'll do that because it makes it easier when the currents change, when you're anchored up, to switch out that weight to a heavier weight or a lighter weight based on the velocity of the current when you're fishing. I think it's important to be able to switch out your weights a little quicker. And if we do that, what we'll do, we'll take this same basic setup and we'll take a snap swivel on the end of our braid here, and then on the other end, we would take and put a snap swivel instead of a barrel swivel on our leader. And that way you can take the snap swivel, snap out your inline sinker, and switch from a 1 ounce to a 4 ounce or whatever you choose to go with.
Show that a little bit closer with the bead set up and the inline.
Yeah, we use the beads for a couple different reasons. One of the big reasons I believe in is when that eel is down there swimming around, and again we use about a 6 foot leader or one good arm pull. We do that because I feel it gives the eel a little more freedom on the line, and when that eel is swimming around and he jerks around a little bit, I believe, and I've talked to many other people that believe the same thing, that the beads along with the barrel swivel and the weight kind of make a little bit of noise under that water, and it could attract that fish. We're all people that believe in our own things when we're fishing, but that's what I believe in, and it seems to work for me. I've fished with a lot of different people, and most of them feel the same way. The other thing it does is when your customers, in my instance, your customers are reeling in that line, and you've got a big heavy weight on this line here, and they reel it up to the tip of your rod, you're not knocking your eyes off the tip of your rod, and they can't reel your your weight into that eye and break out the tip of your rod eyes. You know, we invest a lot of money on our boat and our rods and reels. John Bishop does all of our rods for us, custom, and he takes good care of them for us. And we appreciate his hard work, and we want to make sure that it lasts us a very long time. So that's another reason we put those beads on there, especially on the upside of the weight. So, but
Yeah, the weights are important because what you're going to find is the fish are probably feeding at a certain depth. They might be towards the top, they might be deep, they might be in the midwater column, and as that current, as you know, we get max and the current, goes from slack all the way to max and then back down to slack again. So the current varies, every hour you're out there, and so. I like the idea of being able to change out the weights quicker, because once you've got this in line, it's not easy to change.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. You have to, I mean, it's not hard. It's just time consuming. You know, the mate or whoever on your boat would have to, cut it, put a new weight on, retie it. It's a whole lot easier with 2 snap swivels just to unsnap it and put the inline weight on there and start going. You know, you can also one of the things that, again, like Mike brought up, the fish usually are hanging at a certain depth. It was found that you get most of your bites at certain depths. When we first set up our spread, we vary our depths. We'll set up a couple free line, as long as they're not skimming across the top in a rushing current. We'll set a couple free liners out. We'll set a couple with 1 ounce, a couple with 2 ounces, and kind of vary the depth stages so we can try to find where the fish are hanging. And once we find where they're hanging, it's good to have the ability to switch up to that level. Again, with the planers at night or during the day, you can put 2 out to the side and increase your spread. We fish those out, another 30, 40 feet from the side of the boat, which, if you're on a 20-foot boat or a 30-foot boat, you're increasing your whole fishing area by 40 feet, 60 feet on either side of your boat. You've got that 20, 30 feet extra with that planer board, which is very important, to cover more water. Yeah, allows you to fish more rods off smaller boats offshore.
Well, I am hopeful that we're going to get a little bit of a bite this year at the high rise. Last December, if you recall, it was a relatively mild December. The entire month of December was mild with warm temperatures, and so the fish stayed way up north.
Yeah.
Already we've had a relatively chilly December and a couple of big cold fronts coming through. I'm hopeful that it pushes the fish more into our range, and the fish kind of hang out there for a few weeks anyways, and we get a shot at them. So
yeah, I have a lot of friends and customers from up north, and I keep my ear to the ground pretty well this time of year, and I know, from good reports where the fish usually are as far as in the Atlantic Ocean. And I got a good buddy of mine who's been fishing the last couple days here, and he's been doing relatively well right out of Indian River, which is in Delaware, just north of Virginia. So hopefully, maybe in the next couple of weeks we'll have some fish pushing down here, and to get a little heavier for us as far as the action. The other thing that we can talk about outside of the night bite, the daytime drifting eels. Again, we use the same basic setup night or day, and during the daytime we're drifting 99.9% of the time. At least we are in my boat, and when we do that, we can put out more than 2 planer boards because we can have a great visual of our area around the boat. We can be respectful of our other anglers and other boats around us. It's definitely an advantage to fishing during the day when you can see your area around your boat and know what your spread's doing a little better. During the daytime, I'll use up to 6 planer boards on our boat. We have the outriggers on our boat, and other people have the outriggers. We don't use them. They're just not, to me, they're not an advantage to us to use. We choose to use the planer boards, and we like the success rate we've had with them. On a good day when the weather's decent and the boats around us are respectful of our spread and we can be respectful of theirs, we will fish 6 planer boards and 3 on each side. We'll fish another 3 or 4 rods off the back of the boat. So we can fish 10 rods off of our boat. And there's some boats out there that fish more than that. And more power to them. But off my boat, that's about the most I feel comfortable with. It's right about 8 to 10 rods. And you know, we vary the depth. My favorite depth, for some reason, over the years, it's worked for me, is 20 to 25 feet. It just seems to be the sweet spot all around. You know, I've been eel fishing for stripers for probably 10 years, and that's always been my sweet spot. That 20 to 25 foot just seems like the real good spot that those fish are, you know, traveling in the water column, and we've always had really good bites there. I think those of us who have a lot of experience with eel fishing, if we put a rod on the bottom, 99.9% of the time it's going to come up with a shark. That's kind of like the sacrificial rod, and hopefully that you know, that doesn't happen to all your eels, and you have plenty of eels to feed to the sharks. But some people choose to put a down rod because they feel they might get that good bite from that big fish that's traveling along the bottom. I've seen it happen. We've caught a few big fish off the bottom, but again, you know, my choice, my preference is that 20 to 25 foot range. But I'll vary the planer boards, and I do it. So we'll have 3 planer boards off to one side, let's say, and what I do is my furthest one out is going to be my furthest one back. So my furthest one out to the side is probably going to be 30 feet out behind it. And depending on the current, again, we'll adjust the egg weights inline. When we're drifting at day, I prefer to use this method with the sliding egg weight versus the snap swivels. I just don't find myself changing the weights as much because you're drifting with the current. You're not sitting there anchored, resisting the current, where the current's going to sweep your eels more to the surface.
Right.
So the egg weights seem to be the best solution for us during the day. Again, the furthest one out, we put 30 feet. Next one, 20 feet. Next one, 15. And then we'll fish the same thing off the other side. And then off the back of the boat, we'll fish a couple free lining eels. Just free line, maybe on a bobber. We use the the release type bobbers like these here. These work really well. There's many different variations of them. This is what's called a ready rig. It works really well. The best way to use these, in my opinion, is I keep them. If you don't have the planers, you can use these, but they don't go out to the sides like the planers do.
They go straight out.
They go straight out. Wherever your current's taking that line is where it's going to go. So you're really limited on how many of these you can usually fish. But what we do is we take and put them on the main line. So the rig has a swivel, if you will, on the top, and you pop that swivel open, and you put that on your line, right on your main line, okay? And then you take that and pop it right back on. And then the bottom, you can, it's got 2 pieces of rubber right there. You push in on the top, and you see how it separates them right there? What you can do is you take that, you can do a half loop. Some people like doing an actual loop in their line and putting both pieces of line in there, just like that, nice and close. And what happens is when the striper comes and eats your eel, he's going to start pulling that bobber, and what's going to happen is you're going to grab your rod, of course, if you're watching it, and you're going to lift your rod tip up, and it's going to go boop, just like that. This is going to fall all the way down to right there, and it's not going to go any further. A lot of people don't use these or are afraid to use these because they think that it's going to go all the way down to the hook. Even if you're not using a weight on your free line, on my free line eels, I take the weight off and still have the beads there, and the bobber stops right at the bead. I personally don't think that you'd have an issue if it did slide down for whatever reason, but it could be. And again, you want to maximize your advantage and not put more risk factors in there than you have to. So that's going to slide down to there. You can definitely reel it in all the way to here, and then your net guy is going to be there, and he's going to net your fish for you. And then you can just take that out, set it back out again with a new eel, go your distance behind here. You can pull as much as you want. Again, 20 to 25 feet seems to be a sweet spot for us, but we vary them, and hook it back up, and you're good to go again. So they're really nice. I don't think I've ever lost one because unless you forget to snap the little swivel right here, it's going to stay right there unless your line breaks. But works really well, and I suggest you definitely try them out. It'll increase your spread. They're relatively inexpensive, and it's a good thing to use to you have your planer boards, you have your bobbers, you have your free lines, and it gives you all sorts of advantages to having a variable spread instead of just throwing out a couple lines with swimming eels on them with no weight or with varied weight. Again, the bobber is a great visual. If you're not using planer boards, the bobber's a great visual to other anglers around you that know where your spread is. They'll help other people know because it gets a little crowded out there depending on where you're fishing. And if they can't see your spread, they could very well run over your spread, and that would not be good for you or them. So it's a good visual aid for other anglers as well.
Yeah, the other style bobber, and I've used them too, and I use them often too, is instead of the clips here, it's just a hole through the whole bobber.
Sure.
And there's a very small pin that goes in there. So this is just free floating on your line, and then what you do at the appropriate depth that you want, somewhere back here in your reel, you tie a bobber stop. And they make it, you can buy a bobber stop, or you can do like I do because I'm cheap. I just get a small rubber band and tie it onto the line nice and tight. So as you deploy the bait, the bobber, as soon as the bobber hits your bobber stop, wherever you put it, 10, 20, 30 feet,
Sure.
That's where it stops. And so then the angler can just crank all the way through, and you don't got to worry about a release clip. They both work, and I've used them both. They're both very, very effective, and you set them both, you put the bait wherever you want it. You want to talk a little bit about your planers and how you deploy them?
Yep. So on the planers, you can use the planers. I've seen people use bobbers on the planers. I don't. I personally prefer just to have the planer on the line. The planer is my visual aid, and the planer holds the depth. It does everything a bobber does. So I'm not sure why. Maybe they have a good reason, but I'm not sure why you would use a bobber with a planer.
Do people do that?
I've seen it. It's pretty funny. But yeah, they might have a reason that I don't know about.
Because the planer floats.
Yeah, planer's a bobber. We use this style. There's definitely many different styles out there. Some may be better than others to whoever is using them. This is a yellowbird planer. They come in a port and starboard or left and right.
Sit down so I can see your face.
Yep.
But now your face is cut off.
Sorry about that.
Right.
So this is a left and a right or a port and starboard. And if you go and buy planers and you don't know what you're doing, you may buy the wrong ones. You may buy two that go the same direction, and that doesn't help you a whole lot as far as keeping your spread out there. You want to make sure that you have a pair of them. I buy them in pairs always. These are red and green, just like port and starboard. Again, there's different manufacturers out there. There's some local guys that make them, which are really nice. I don't unfortunately have any of those, but these seem to be working for us, and we've been using them for years. And again, this is something that if you hook up correctly on your line, which I'll show you in a second how we do it, you don't lose them. They do float. So if you ever have one that for some other reason gets off, you can definitely go retrieve it because they don't sink, they float. They're angled. You can see there, they're angled, and what that angle does is it grabs the current and then it pushes them out to the side of the boat. And actually, I got them backwards here actually. So pushes them out to the side like that, and when they go out to the side, you can stop your line on your reel and adjust where you want them set. So this is your port side, this is your starboard side, left or right. And so the way we hook them up is we take the main line, and again, we've got a nice swivel on here.
Yep. So find your depth you want first.
Yep. You want to find your depth, and what I do is I'll hook the swivel on there, and then I will go and pull this out and find my depth. And once I find the depth that I want to have my eel hanging around, I'll take this clip right here in the front and push it open and put it in there just like that. And then what happens is you deploy this, you put it right out and just drop your eel in the water. You drop your planer board here in the water, and then immediately it starts going right out to the side. The current, again, is going to be the deciding factor on how far out and the boats around you that you want to put these out. But again, we'll fish as little as 2, as many as 6. The cool thing about these is, A, they're very visual, and they definitely increase your spread. So if you've got a spread, behind your boat now, where say you have a 10-foot wide boat, you're very limited on how far you can put your spread out while you're drifting. One of the advantages of the planer boards, of course, as we discussed before, is they take that and multiply your spread immensely. So you can put this bar out, as this little planer board out, as far as you like, and just be respectful of people around you, and know what you're capable of handling. That's the big deciding factors there. They're keel weighted. There's a weight on the bottom. So, if the weather does get a little rougher, they still ride very well. This is a float here and a keel weight there. So if they do flip over, all you got to do is, most of the time you can kind of take your rod tip and pop it, and it'll pop right back up and start floating again and go out and do its thing. If you do get it tangled up, again, it's not going to sink. It's got the float built into it, and the keel weight should keep it from flipping over. Again, I've never had any problem with them staying upright. They seem to work very well for us, and we enjoy using them a lot. They've been very productive.
Now I've noticed the release clips here. They look like they're pretty adjustable.
They are. They're definitely, yeah.
With the screw top on top.
We use we use braid. Some people choose to put a top shot on there. I don't really see for what we do. I don't see the advantage to it. So on braid, you'd want to make sure, or thinner lines, you'd want to make sure that you get this a little snug, because it will slide out. You can see it's not easy to slide out, but it definitely will as the weather gets rougher, or say you want it to be a little easier to pull out. You can definitely adjust the tension on these. And again, this is this style. There's other styles out there that adjust differently.
Well, a lot of the ones that I've seen in tackle stores, and I'm not going to name them, but the clip is the clip, and there's no way to adjust the tension really.
Sure.
And so you get out there and the seas are rough or the currents run good, you're always popping the clip out.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, you see your eel just 5 feet behind your planer board, and then you know that your clip is popped. So these are called Yellowbird, and they seem to have a nice little tension adjuster on it, so I may try these myself. So that's one of my complaints about some of the boards I have, is they're always popping free, and you can buy separate clips. Some are more heavy duty, but then you gotta stock a whole bunch of different clips.
Yeah. Again, this is the style or brand that we've been using for a long time, and this brand of style is very heavily used in the Great Lakes. They use them up there when they're running the planers for the walleyes and stuff like that. And I think that's what the striper fishermen around here have kind of found, that they work very well for us here. The Great Lakes are very similar to our Chesapeake Bay as far as weather. They get some pretty rough seas out there, and they rely heavily on these planer boards to maximize their spread up there, and whoever started using them down here, I think, because they work very well for us. And again, I like the adjustable tension on there, like you said. They got little rubber things on here as well, and they wear out after time. These are brand new. I just want to have some new ones just to show you guys, but the rubber on there does wear out or eventually pop off, and you can buy all the replacement parts from Yellowbird as well. You can find them online or at your local tackle retailer. But they work great for us, and those are the style or the brand that we choose to use. So.
Now, I will tell you too that one of the things that a lot of people doing now is they're doing a very slow troll with the planer boards.
Right.
Instead of drifting. If you're drifting, you're going to go wherever the wind and current takes you, and sometimes that may not be
where you want
to be. And so you're always picking up and resetting.
Right.
I've done them both ways. As long as I have good movement with the drift, I like the drift myself, because everything's turned off. Sometimes they're like cobia. They're very shy to noises, and so the drifting, everything's turned off, and and it's nice and quiet. Now the trolling is with the trolling, you can kind of stay in the zone you want in terms of following the structure and the contours. But the problem is, even on a small boat with one engine engaged all the time, you're probably going too fast. And especially on a larger diesel boat, you're going to probably go way too fast. And so it's hard on the captain because he's doing a bump troll. So he's just putting it in gear, get the forward momentum going back to neutral, just to maintain that forward momentum. But then you can put a spread out as a regular trolling spread. And so that's how a lot of the guys are doing it now, and they're finding success. The drifting still works, but don't be afraid to do a little bump troll and try that too.
Yeah, one of the things we do on our boat, we're fortunate enough on our boat to have trolling gears. Again, we're a big diesel boat. We're a 61-foot boat with big diesel engines and all that. So we have some advantages, some disadvantages to smaller boats. But the thing that I like about our boat, we do have the trolling gears, and what that allows us to do, it allows us to troll at 1 knot, 2 knots, 3 knots.
That's because really that's what you want is no more than 1 knot for
I try to keep our trolling when our trolling gears just engaged enough to especially at slack tide. I think it helps a lot. You get to where the boat's kind of stationary and your spread's just kind of floating wherever it wants to. It gets a little irritating, and then especially at those times, it helps to do that bump troll method. And with us, with the trolling gears, we can engage them and keep our spread nice and spread out and in the zone, and it seems to work really well for us. The trolling gears are great. Eeling or trolling, we use them for the striped bass. The eels, to me, they need to be moving. And sometimes they get a little lethargic when the slack tide comes in and they don't move much, and the bite slows down immensely. And I think that's a key period to do that bump trolling, not only when you're in a regular running tide, just to keep you in the strike zone or the channel edges where you want to fish, but also on slack tide.
So let's switch gears. Let's talk about when the bite is good and we're putting out the fun gear. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let me put this guy up here, get him out of the way. And so I'll start with a little story. Years ago, Stretch doing what it does best. Years ago, when we first started striped bass fishing, when I was a kid, I grew up fishing out of Reedville, Virginia. And some of you that know me might know that about me, but I grew up fishing with a lot of the guys who, just most recently used to come down here and fish off the ocean front with us. And so I come from the old school trolling area, and the big planer boards like you hear about. And when I was 13 years old, we were trolling 22, 24 rods off the back of a 40-foot Chesapeake dead rods boat. So I've grown up in the Chesapeake Bay the majority of my life. Striped bass was one of the first fish that I ever learned how to catch, and it has since then been my favorite fish to catch as far as inshore and nearshore. I really enjoy the chase. I enjoy the tactics that we use, and I enjoy the flavor of the fish as well. Rockfish to me, or striped bass, whatever you choose to call them, is one of the more versatile fish as far as eating. They have a real mild flavor, and you can season them how you like and cook them so many different ways it's not even funny, but they're delicious to me and many other people, obviously. But trolling for them has been one of my favorite things to do, and very productive. One of the things I think a lot of people mess up with, in my opinion, when they do troll for striped bass, is that they tend to throw everything but the kitchen sink at them. And to me, when it comes to trolling for striped bass, the best thing to do is keep it simple. I'm sure you guys have all heard of the KISS rule, keep it simple, stupid. That has always been what works, and for me, always will be my go-to trolling spread. We usually start with singles and tandems. I get all my lures from a custom lure maker up in Maryland, and he's been making lures for a while. He does an extremely good job. Lures are an investment to all of us as fishermen, and if your lure is going to last you and it catches fish, I think that's very important. And Keith at Puller's Lures makes all my mojos and my tandem rig type stuff for me. It's good to have a varied weight range in them. We have them all the way from 2 3-ounce lures all the way up to 36-ounce heavy mojos. And we like to experiment with colors, but other than that, we keep it pretty simple in my spread. The mojos, the ones we use are, they got the eyeballs in them, and one of the things that I personally feel with the eyeballs is they attract light, and when you see them and look at them straight on, they wobble when we get the tails on them, like these guys here. Let's see, use this one here as an example. This is a lighter one here, and it's got the tail with a double hook, and I'll explain that to you in a second. But with that tail wobbling, it makes that head wobble, and the water takes that hair back. Those eyeballs wobble. It's kind of like they're winking at the fish. Come eat me, come eat me. And they do. They work really well for us.
So what brand are these with the eyeballs?
This is a guy called Puller's Lures, Pullers, Puller's Lures.
His website? Or?
He does. He's got a website and a Facebook page. His name is Keith Puller.
Okay.
And pullerslures.com and Puller's Lures on Facebook.
Those are some big old eyeballs. You don't see that too often.
Yeah. They're kind of cute, and
you can see that very well. But big old eyeballs on there.
They definitely add some action to the bait, and they add a little bit of a special thing that not everybody has. There's a few out there that have the eyeballs, but something that he does with his is a little special to me, and it seems to work real well. You get a good view of them there. He'll also do custom orders for us. If he comes out with a new crazy color, he'll send me a few, and I'll try them out, and I'll be like, nah, that doesn't work, or yeah, man, that's a great new color. Pulling these, we pull them in tandems. So your heavy one is going to go on a shorter leader. I pull all mine off of a 3-way swivel. So you'll have your main line, and I'll show you the rod here in just a second. I use the 3-way. Just standard 3-way swivel, your choice of manufacturer, and your main line swivel will go to your snap swivel will go to 1, and then the other 2, what we do is we'll take our 6-foot leader, our shorter leader, and that'll go to the heavy bait. And I tie them directly. Some people will crimp. I use 80-pound fluorocarbon. Again, fluoro is my thing. I use 80-pound fluoro. It seems to work real well. I like the 80-pound fluoro because I can manhandle the baits, especially when I was mating a lot on striper trips. I would, when you're getting into a frenzy and you've got 4 or 5 customers hooked up all at the same time, it's ridiculous to take a net and net those fish and put them in the boat. So you just grab a hand wrap and yank them right in the boat.
Grab the head of the mojo and pull them in.
Yep, you can grab that, especially a big heavy-headed mojo like that. You can just grab it right there, just throw them right in the boat, and then you can go to your next customer or your next friend that's got a fish hooked up right at the boat, and you can grab that one and do the same thing. That 80-pound fluoro or whatever you choose to use, 80 is the minimum I use on the heavy guys. So
on your short leader is the heavy
yes.
mojo, and then on the longer trailer,
the longer one
is a lighter. Kind of lighter lure.
Yeah. So this is this one.
That's
here.
Your heavy one.
This is a 30-ounce heavy, and so you can switch colors. You can do whatever. I like to keep it simple. I'll do a chartreuse hair with a chartreuse hair, maybe the same color heads. It just depends on what's going on and how the fish action's been. And then on the smaller one, I'll use a 12-foot on average leader. And again, I just do the arm pulls. It's just quick and simple. I'll do one arm pull for my heavy short, and I'll do 2 arm pulls for my long one, sometimes 3. Just depends on how far back I want that. And I think what it does, if you think about it, as a triangle, your heavy bait's going to stay down, and it's going to be on that short leader, and then your lighter bait's going to be higher in the water column, and it's going to be a little further back. So if you think about pulling it through the water column, the 6-foot bait's going to be at this angle here, that 12-foot bait's going to be right about here. So you've got the smaller bait and the larger bait, and the fish, I think, really key in on that, especially when you're pulling a full spread of those tandems. It imitates, a small school of bait fish, and can entice that bite really well. Again, on our boat, when we're trolling, I actually do use the outriggers when we're trolling. Some people use the planer boards. I don't use planer boards on my boat. They would just be a hassle. On the Chesapeake dead rod style boats or some smaller boats where you're familiar with using those planer boards a lot more than we are up here, in Virginia Beach area and in a sport fishing boat, of course. We've got those outriggers, and I have triple outriggers on my boat, so I can pull 3 off each side. So I'll pull 3 off each side on my boat, and each one of those 3 will be tandems. So that'll be 12 baits I'll have in the water right there, just out of my outriggers, not including what I pull off my deck rods. So my deck rods, which are the rods that aren't on outriggers, I'll pull tandems on those as well. And my preferred spread is, all single tandem baits. I don't pull stretches. I don't pull anything crazy. One of the little things that I like to do, a lot of people haven't used and haven't seen, these lures right here. These are called tonics, and again, it's a bait from Canada. It's a bait that's used up north. They're really cool looking. A lot of the local tackle shops do carry them. Many people haven't seen them. They have just a single swash hook down there at the bottom, and a lot of times they'll have that rattle in there. So the rattle, of course, as we know, does attract the striped bass for us. And what this bait does is it sits there and it wags. That lip gets the water and it wags its tail just like that and swims and swims and swims. And this has been one of my favorite baits to use as a trailer bait. You can see I've got this hooked up with the snap swivel there. And so you would take your smaller bait and change that out with this bait here, Atomic. And it's got the longer leader on it, at least 12 feet. And it's a very effective bait. I like pulling these on my heavy mojos, my ones that are down to the bottom. When I have all my spread out with my outriggers, again, I do it the same way as my planer rods. My furthest ones out are my longest ones back, and then I bring them in as they come closer to the boat. That's just the way we do it. You may do it different on your boat, but that's how we do it on ours, and it seems to work real well for us. The lighter lures to the inside, lighter lures to the outside, the heavier lures to the inside. So if you're fishing a tandem and you've got we'll just say for instance, a 6 and a 3, 6 ounce and a 3 ounce, similar to this one here. You have a 6 ounce and a 3 ounce, and you'd fish these. This one would be on your 12 foot, this one would be on your 6 foot, and these would be my furthest out baits on my outriggers. They'd also have the tails on them, of course. These would be my furthest out baits. And the next set would be like a 6 ounce and a 9 ounce. So that way you've got the next heavier bait in, then the next one would be a 9 ounce and a 12 ounce. So you'd have them, gaining weight as they come in. Your lightest baits to the outside, your heavier baits to the inside. And then when we get to our deck rods, what we'll do on our deck rods is we'll fish heavier. So we'd go to like a 12 and an 18 and fish those tandems off the deck. And then right off the stern, we like to pull the heavy guys, these guys here, the 30 ounce pluses. And that's where I like putting my tonics. They really, really produce. What we'll do with these heavy ones with the tails on them, and we double hook them just like that. With the tails on them, we drop it down until it hits the bottom. and then we crank it up 2 cranks. And that 2 cranks just gets it up off the bottom where it's not going to get weeded up or grassed up or anything funky on it. And it allows that rod tip to kind of bend. And it gives it that little more action off that one. And then we'll put this tonic on the long trailer off the back. And that's my money bait. That's my go-to big fish catcher. When the fishing's slow, these really produce. The heavy ones are off the bottom for us.
Now, do you run a different kind of spread when you're trolling in the bay versus the ocean, or
I run the same exact spread.
Same kind of spread.
What I will do is sometimes in the ocean, if the fishing's really good, I'll bring it back a little bit. Instead of fishing, 10, 12, 14 rods, I'll fish 6, 8, 10 rods.
Yeah, because when the bite's red hot and you run across the school of hungry rocks, that'd be some chaos there.
Yeah, we've tried before, and I'm sure many people have seen them. We've tried the daisy chain rigs. And a daisy chain rig is basically shads or bucktails, 4 or 5 of them on like a rig, and each one of those have hooks in them. In Virginia, we can do that. In Maryland, you're limited to 2 hooks per rig. Virginia, we don't have a limit like that. So we would have the 4 bucktails on little danglers off, and on the bottom we'd put the heavy Mojel, like a 30 ounce plus Mojel, and we'd run that right off the side, right behind our double heavies, right at the stern. And we have on numerous occasions had every hook have a fish on it. So you'd have 25-pound, 30-pound rockfish 5 deep, and let me tell you, that is insane. Back 3 or 4 years ago when the fishing was really hot off the ocean front, we stopped pulling them because it was just too much.
Now you're pulling some pretty heavier gear now, right? When you're pulling 30-ounce Mojo.
Oh yeah.
So you got something a little beefier.
Yeah, when we're trolling, we use a standard TLD 25, and on this rod here, this one's actually got the high vis because we also use these TLDs for white marlin as well. This has got the high vis on it, the mono, but underneath it is braid. And what we do for rockfish season when we start trolling for them, we actually take the top shot off and we use the braid. We go directly braid to a little shock leader, if you will, and to a snap swivel. And what that does for us when we're trolling, and I think some of you would agree that know this, when you're pulling braid, it cuts through the water better. Mono tends to float. It's got more resistance in the water. So getting your spread, especially at the slow speeds that you have to go for striped bass fishing, that braid helps cut through that water and sink faster. So you can get away with actually using lighter baits and still fishing deeper when you're using braid instead of mono.
All right.
So, but what we do, we'll take this rod here, and we use special handles on ours too. These come from Tom Testa, Real Colors up in Connecticut. He makes these real handles for us, and we have them on all our TLDs. They're pretty neat. They have a foam, EVA foam grip there, and they wobble back and forth for you, and they spin. It's really, really great. They actually make a TLD reel something real special. We like them a lot. Gives a nice power grip there. When you're fishing these tandems, what we do is we have a heavy-duty snap swivel. This is a 200-pound, 250-pound snap swivel ball bearing, and what we do, as I was saying earlier, is we take that. If you hold this for a second for me, Mike, and we take that 3-way swivel and we put it on there just like that. Snap it on, and then we take our heavy and we'll put that on there, and heavy goes on one and the lighter one goes on the other. And what that allows me to do by using this 3-way and using the snap swivels is if we have a bite that seems to be keying in on one color, if it's on white with a blue head, if it's on chartreuse with a white head, with a white tail, we can switch it out really quick.
Right.
Instead of tying stuff, we've got everything pre-rigged, and we can go ahead and just take our snap swivels and snap it off, snap it on. If you get one that's gotten kind of chafed up, or if you lost a lure, you can go ahead and just snap it on there, snap it off. It makes it real quick, real easy to change out. So that's something I learned a long time ago, and you may have a different way of doing it, but that's the way we do it, and it works good for us. So when we're trolling the heavy mojos, it's good to have a good heavy action rod. These are great for striped bass fishing, for trolling. They are not so heavy that they actually take the action out of the fight, but they're heavy enough to where you can pull these. You figure if you're pulling a 32, 36 ounce heavy and then a 12 ounce trailer, you've got 3-4 pounds of weight. You're going to want something with a little bit of a backbone to.
That's right, and you're trolling a few 2 to 3 knots. That's pulling some.
That's a lot of resistance. The eeling rod, as we showed you, you want a medium heavy action, with maybe a faster tip on it. With the trolling rods, we would definitely want a heavy boat rod with a not as fast a tip. You don't want to have it, broomstick, because you want to have that action so the baits can, kind of swim and pulsate as they do in the water, and have that action. And if you have too heavy of a rod, then you're not gonna get that action.
That was interesting. A few years ago, we were all trolling with 50 wides because the bluefin were mixed in with the stripers.
Well, that was fun.
I didn't want to get a bluefin on my TLD 15. Or my Pin GTI.
That's when we started fishing with the 50 wides and pulling 150 pound leader on these things, because these bluefin were actually hitting these lures. Some people were out there unexpectedly trolling around, and all of a sudden they have no more line left on their rod because Mr. Bluefin came up and took it away from them.
All right, so we're coming up to over an hour now, so let's try to wrap it up. So any final thoughts you want to say to anybody?
I think striper fishing, rock fishing is a lot of fun. We're blessed to have the fishery we have. Hopefully it's going to rebound for us and come back to where it was a couple years ago. The eel fishing has been very productive for a lot of us. There's so much that you can do. There's such a variation in these fish as far as the size of them. You can go and have fun with the lightweight, bucktails and Ron's lures, or swim shads. You can cast to them and have a great time doing that. It's great for kids. It's great for your wife or your girlfriend, and young child. It's so important to get out there and take advantage of the fisheries we have. And rockfish is a great one because it's very versatile. You can target the smaller species. You can target the monsters. And it's not that expensive to do as far as your tackle. It's not like offshore fishing where you're spending thousands of dollars on your rods and reels and your tackle and your bait. You can get into rock fishing and be productive for a very affordable price. So just keep it simple. You don't have to overdo it. The latest and greatest always isn't the best. You can, like I said, I've been pulling tandems for 20 plus years, and they've worked for 20 plus years. I don't see a reason to change it as far as trolling. The eeling is a lot of fun. Keep it simple. Don't overdo it. Keep it fun. And I think that's the key to it all.
So what I have found is the key to success is obviously fishing where the fish are and having the right spread out. And if you're just starting out and don't have a lot of experience, videos like this are going to help. But the fastest way to learn is to book your favorite charter captain. And Robert will put you on the fish. So here, look up the 4-wheel charters. Call Robert at this number or go to his website and contact him, and he'll put you on the rockfish. He'll put together a package for you to get you out there, and you can learn firsthand by the pros and how they do it. And that's the fastest, bestest way to learn. In addition to rockfish, they run all kinds of other trips. Sea bass, taw coming up, and the offshore game. Not much going on offshore other than deep dropping, but the 4-reel could put together some some good packages for you.
Reversal, we fish 12 months out of the year, so you know, if you're looking, and I'm the type of captain as well, Mike. You may know this, you know, and other people that know me know that. If you want to call me and you're fishing your boat and you want me to tell you what's going on, I don't have a problem telling you. You know, you call me up and ask me for a fishing report, I'll give you the real deal. I got nothing to hide. You know, I don't keep any secrets as far as you know, what's going on. You know, I might have a secret hole or two. For offshore deep dropping, but you know, that's a whole different category.
Well, again, so you know, to wrap up, we apologize for the live stream. We just had I guess the upstream feed was just too slow. We were putting out, but it just wasn't fast enough, and everything was freezing. And so so we're going to upload this and share with everybody. So while you're watching this video, you know, please go to the VISA homepage. It's ifishva.org. And consider becoming a VISA member, and it's only $25 per year. You get access to all these videos, and the more anglers we have in our association, the more effective we are in fighting these fishery managers who every year all they want to do is take more of our fish away. And so we're showing up to meetings, we're staying engaged, we're trying to show the fishery managers that you just can't do that. We're not going to go down without a fight.
You need to stand up and be heard.
And we have to be heard. What they want is for us to stay home, then they get to do whatever they want. And then the regulations published, and oh, our season sucks, our limits suck, and at some point in time, we'll say to ourselves, well, it's not even worth going out anymore. If all I can keep is one fish per boat, you know.
It's been proven that the louder you talk, the more presence you have,
yep.
The better it is for what you believe in.
So I want to thank Capt Robert for taking his time and giving us his rockfish secrets. And until next time, we'll see you again.